Yoroshiku, Shonen Tachiyo. Been a while, hasn't it? And I'm glad that we're finally back. Here today to celebrate Kinnikuman Day by doing a review for none other than Perfect Origins arc SH Figuarts Kinnikuman himself. I'm very excited for this. This channel has been dedicated to Kinnikuman, and I kind of feel like, I've had some circumstances IRL come up. So it's been a little while that we visited this series, and I want to show off our love for Kinnikuman. As you can see, we have the majority of the SH Figuarts Kinnikuman lineup. I even have a couple extras on the side. And most importantly, I want to do something that I haven't seen any of the other videos do for this fella, which is we're going to take a look at him, but we're also going to compare him to every other Kinnikuman that we have. So if you haven't already, make sure to like the video for more Kinnikuman and subscribe to celebrate our legends together. So first things first, let me put Suguru to the side really quick, and let's take a look at the box. So for those who don't know who Kinnikuman is, let's get into it. This version specifically is a figure based off of the brand new Netflix anime known as the Perfect Origin arc, and I have to say, it's been amazing, especially for us longtime fans who have been wanting to see that arc adapted. And the box definitely does it justice. I mean, it does have a more simpler style to it, I will say that, but I really like it personally. I think the font that we have on the side is really evocative of Kinnikuman, especially the red and white colors. I'm sure those who have watched my channel have seen and noticed that I try to mimic that style sometimes. And here's a couple of the promotional shots in the back. Here we have Kinnikuman doing his classic pose. Anyone who's read the manga, that's one of Kinnikuman's signature poses, just kind of flexing there. Muscle curtain, Muscle Spark, Kinniku Driver, and the classic Kinniku Buster. So up here you'll notice one of the signature features of this particular figure is that unlike most SH Figuarts, he doesn't have traditional face plates, so to speak, where there are preset faces. He features more of a customizable face where you can swap out different eyes and different mouths to create various different expressions. I do think that it has some pros and it has some cons, but overall it gets the job done. Now that we've taken a look at the box, let's get right into Suguru. So who is Kinnikuman exactly? Kinnikuman is what I would like to call one of the Shonen godfathers, one of the people who helped invent the genre that it is today. I know he definitely seems like he has a more simplistic design. He's really just a muscle man, but that's kind of part of what has his charm, is his more simplistic nature compared to what came later on. Kinnikuman essentially is a shonen series that started back in the late 70s, ran all the way through the 90s, and then had another resurgence with its sequel, Ultimate Muscle / Kinnikuman Nisei, and then that would continue on to this very day. They never stopped. I have to give Yudu Tamago their props. They just keep pushing on and on and on, putting out more chapters for us fans to live off of, and I really appreciate it. So if you haven't tapped into the new anime, I highly recommend it. He is the comeback fighter. He never gives up. He always has the burning inner strength, not only thanks to the friends that stand behind him, but also thanks to the fire within his heart, that fire of believing in himself, which is ironic because he doesn't for a long time. This series starts off as a comedy series and slowly builds up into the fast-paced, over-the-top violent action, or violent wrestling, I should say, that Kinnikuman is known for, as you can see with all the baddies back there. So let's get into the actual appearance of the figure. I have to say, personally, I am a big fan of his physique. One thing you'll notice, especially compared to his older counterpart, that's the original SH Figuarts Kinnikuman, is he is a little bit on the skinnier side, at least for what you would consider Kinnikuman to be. He is literally a Chojin, which means a superman, a super wrestler, superhuman, and that's exactly what it means. Bigger muscles, bigger buys, bigger tries, bigger thighs, and just a more dominating presence, right? He has that silhouette where you're like, damn, that's a strong guy. At least compared to the generations that would come after him, like Goku and the modern era of Yuji / Sukuna, Kinnikuman's silhouette is totally different. He just has that Superman appearance. And personally, I feel like that is really part of the charm of this character. Some new people who are unfamiliar with Kinnikuman might be asking, what's up with his pig face? And the ugly factor / cute factor is part of Kinnikuman's charm. Long story short, his parents, as they were traveling, literally tried to abandon him. Well, his father at least literally was forgetful of him and left him on Earth, kicked him out of a ship. He landed there, and wink, wink, wink. Tell me that doesn't sound like a familiar origin story, huh? An alien left on Earth. Sounds very familiar to me. Also, Superman. We need to get a Superman figure for our collection. But getting to his appearance, I have to say, the reason I mentioned that is because I feel like these two figures capture different eras of Kinnikuman. This figure accurately depicts the 2011 onwards run of Kinnikuman. And then these fellas back here kind of represent earlier generations of Kinnikuman. You could say that one represents 80s Kinnikuman / 70s Kinnikuman, and then this one represents 90s Kinnikuman, right? But the point is, I appreciate that all of them have different sculpts, as you'll see. Starting from the top, you can easily see why I am a fan of this figure in some ways. I think that the simplistic design that it has lends itself really nicely to posing, but I also think, and we'll get into that into the articulation portion, that some of the over articulation, so to speak, does hinder it a little bit. But focusing on the presentation, Kinnikuman 2026 has the classic Kinniku fin back here, right, which is key for his mask. I also appreciate how, and you'll see this compared to the other ones, the chin strap for his mask actually has a very defined mold, and I really appreciate that. And I actually do think that his eyes are pretty well done. I also like that depending on the faceplate that you use, you can also see that it has a shadow on it, which I really like in terms of when you're posing or taking photos, because depending on the angle, it gives more of an intimidating presence than a cute one. But I like it personally, and I also think that the mouths, I'm going to show off the other ones when we get into our accessories, but I actually think they function pretty well and they look good for the most part. I'm not going to lie to you and act like he has a million expressions, but when you start mixing and matching different eyes and different mouths, I think that's where the customization factor really starts to come out. Moving on from the face, let's get down to the neck. I think that the mold specifically that they went for the physique looks great. I mean, compared to a lot of SH Figuarts I have, I think the only one that came this close in terms of muscular definition would probably have to be Baki and Toguro. So, but it looks really great. You can see his Adam's apple, rest of his neck muscles. And let's move on to the back. His traps are extremely well defined, as well as his lats, his lower lats. It really just all comes together in this, can't lie. Even got some oblique action over here. And like I said, he's actually a pretty good figure. I mean, I guess it depends on what's cheaper for you as a customizer. But I was gonna say, if you're someone who's a customizer, you could easily buy this fella and just take the head off and do your thing and make whatever kind of, figure that you want. Just saying, it works really good. Kind of like those body kun figures. The rest of his musculature, especially coming down to his arms, looks really great. I mean, I know there's some gappiness presented, but that's just because I had the arms pulled out. But compared to some other figures that I have, he really comes together to give him like this musculature. I mean, he is literally Muscle Man, Kinnikuman. But it comes all together to give him like this very well-defined musculature that just like, even as a figure, you're like, damn, that's a big figure. Coming down to the legs, I will say, and this is just because he's based off the manga colors, there is a lot of white on this figure. I mean, you'll notice that with most of the Kinnikumen because they're based off of the manga. Baki, funny enough, also has white trunks and white shorts. So you can see the connections between Kinnikuman and a lot of the generations that came later on, even in simple design choices. I have to say the trunks do look good, but I would be lying to you if I said I was a big fan of them, only because, and we'll see if the camera, you can see the stress point right there. But when you start really articulating this guy, his lower abdominal area, as you can see, even though it is extremely well molded, has a tendency, especially for someone like Kinnikuman, who you want to be getting in dynamic poses, as showcased on the box, like a camel clutch or a buster or a brain or driver, you know what I'm trying to say, has a tendency to get caught on that belt. And when it does get caught on that belt, it can be a little frustrating sometimes. I mean, I have tweezers that I help, you know, kind of safely tuck it out or untuck it, so to speak, but it is annoying. So something to be mindful of. And that's kind of what we're getting to the cons a bit, is these trunks, man. These trunks, I mean, a lot of people have complained about them. They really, excuse me, they hinder his side articulation. So like, in terms of actually getting a Kinniku Buster, you would have to bring his legs up and then maneuver the arms as you please that way. I will say, and this was a complaint that I saw a lot of reviewers mention, which I'm not gonna act like it's not a complaint, because it is a valid complaint. And I guess I'm moving on to articulation inadvertently, so before I get into that, just move on to the legs. So the point that I'm making is, he looks great visually. Visually, he looks phenomenal. But the issues start to arise where, despite his appearance and despite his, you would think, simple design, they opted for some articulation choices that just baffle me a little bit. And you'll see when I compare him to the older ones, because I get that they wanted the range of motion that was needed for these wrestlers in order to perform their signature moves. But at the same time, some of the design choices feel a little weird to me. So let's start from the top. So he does get a swivel up here, but you're not gonna get a successful 360, and you can already see it because of the sides of the mask. The customization of this figure allows you to pull the faceplate off, right? But the problem with that is, because you can pull that faceplate off, it creates this dilemma now where if you want to get, you know, some side looking angles or poses, you're gonna have to twist his whole neck. That way you get less gap. And even then, from my experience, I've still gotten a bit of gap. And personally, it's not the end of the world, but it's annoying. It's annoying and it's frustrating. And to me, as someone who has handled this figure and all these figures, it's frustrated me enough to where I kind of wish it was like the older ones where, and you'll see the older ones there was no faceplates. They just came with extra heads. You would just pop the head off and pop the other one on. 1, 2, 3, it was easy. This kind of frustrates me a little bit, these decisions. You can also see that back here, and this is a positive. In order for him to gain more range of motion looking up, they added a slot for his head fin right there. And I have to admit, it looks great. It looks really great. And it gets the job done. I just appreciate it because, I mean, I know we don't have a zebra, but let's say we did have a zebra, or I guess we have Super Phoenix. So if you're pulling off a Muscle Inferno and you want to have Phoenix on top like a surfboard, you could do that. So it works. Or if you wanted to have him in his signature pose, haha, Shouourin ni bunkaete, dun dun dun. Yeah, it does work really great though when you want to get the classic poses like this. You know, he just looks really fun. Kinniku Daioste, Kinniku Suguru. Looks pretty cool, right? That's kind of sick. I'm not gonna lie. Back to the articulation though. This is one of the issues that I have. He has like a, let's get in here so you can take a look. He's got a double ball joint. He's got a ball joint connected to a socket, connected to another ball joint. And I understand the idea because dang, it gives him, like I said, you want to do the signature pose? Oops, don't mind me. You want to give him the signature pose like that? This joint, these joints, they do a great job. They look great. But I think the frustration comes when sometimes you're just trying to get a simple up, and it feels like you have to manipulate this middle joint right here. And I'm making it look a little easy, but that's because, I mean, I'm a Kinnikuman lover, bro. I've handled this figure a lot. So I kind of know how to handle the figure already. And you can see me manipulating it. I'm trying to show you guys, give you an example a bit of what I'm talking about. But you can even see it, look, it has extra traps / shoulder. This is actually a trap. This is supposed to be a trap. But the point that I'm making is as a pro, as a plus, as a compliment, I love the physique of this figure. But as a con, the over articulation for people who, I don't even want to just say newcomers, because I've heard hardcore collectors complain about it too. But for people who, I want to say, aren't necessarily patient with Kinnikuman, they might not enjoy this. And I could see why. Because I had when I first popped him out the figure, and it was my first time handling the figure, it was driving me crazy. The arm was popping out every 5 seconds. But after I've come to understand how to handle the figure, I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is just me appreciating it after having it for some time. But something, I mean, you can see the hand has popped off on me 40 times. But other than that, that part I'm mixed on. This part, I don't. It's a straight up con. I don't like this area. Only because, I mean, you can see it right there, right? When you bend this up, this can get caught in there. The waistband can get caught on the lower back, and it's just really frustrating. Look, it's already almost happened right there. So imagine you're just trying to have fun with the figure. You can make a big boo-boo by accident, so be careful. Same thing applies with the front. But the front really, the front isn't as bad as the back. I'm assuming this is because they gave the front more leverage to do Kinniku Buster. But the issue is, and you can already see it there, as soon as you take advantage of that leverage in the front, it creates this distress in the rear. It's something to be duly noted. So just be mindful of that. But yeah, he gets a full swivel over here, up and down. Honestly, a fantastic range of motion, in my opinion. Fantastic, especially considering that, you could even go further up this way and come around here. Like literally, you can go insane. That's a really, for how musculature this figure is, I have to say that's pretty good range of motion. Very impressive stuff. Double jointed bicep. Looks really good. And then this is a full swivel up and down. For those who don't know, you can also take this out and then these come out. So that's also a nice touch. Pretty cool, honestly. One thing I'm curious of is when SH Figuarts Kenshiro comes out, if I'll be able to swap their bodies. But moving down to the legs, this is where another issue arises, is right here. As I mentioned, he definitely does not get the Yujiro split. And it's just because they decided to opt for these under trunks. I call them underpants, where underneath the trunk itself, which classic Kinnikuman, I posed him like that for a reason. You can already see classic Kinnikuman does not have it. Well, he does, but the SH Figuarts don't. Is these under trunks, man. And honestly, I'm not a fan of them. I mean, again, design-wise, it is accurate to the manga. But functionality, this is frustrating as heck. Super frustrating. I mean, you can even see mine likes to tuck in a lot. It's not even like out as much as this one is. It's just frustrating. These trunks parts are frustrating. And I say that because obviously no Yujiro split, which is ironic for the kind of wrestler that he is. No Yujiro split. But you can still get stuff like this, as if you were getting hit by a buster. You know what I mean? You can still get those poses. I don't understand it. There is a workaround to this. And I'm only gonna show you one side because I don't feel like dealing with the craziness. Yeah. You can take the leg off and then take this trunk off. And then if you want, you can plug this back in. Sorry. And then all of a sudden it solves that range of motion issue. But then you get a new issue where now the extra flesh flap, so to speak, is just flying around. So again, you could just pop the leg off, take that out, and then pop this back on. Does that create a slight gap? Yes, but he has that same mechanic that the old ones did where you can extend his legs. Remember that from the older Kinnikuman? So you could easily just hide it, right? And then boom, now you don't have those issues. Now you get a Yujido split. You know what I mean? It's just a little caveat, and I wanted to give that tip for any collectors out there, but you just have to be careful with it, yeah. And even then, like, I don't think you should have to buy a figure and then do this, but I'm grateful that at least the ability is there. And for me personally, in terms of design, I don't know why they didn't just try to find a way to make this work, because he still looks like Kinnikuman to me. It looks fine, except with more functionality, right? Now you can actually get a kick, right? Where before we couldn't do that. And I just find that crazy because it kind of holds back some of the dynamic poses that you can get. I mean, now he looks pretty great, but before it was a little limited. You know what I mean? So just want to point that out. That's the forward. That's the back. I mean, again, I had to take that off in order to give him some extra range of motion. His legs are really a negative. Not even the whole leg, really, because the leg itself actually functions great. This gets a swivel. I mean, it's not a full 360 just because of how big his quads are, but it's all right. Still a decent enough swivel. It is a double jointed, but his hamstrings, boy, it's thick. Can't really get too far back. Then his feet are wonderful though, not gonna lie. Great pivot, full up and down. You get like a gomu gomu no, oh no. I mean, in reality, he's a wrestler, right? So you really want to be getting like drop kicks. You know what I mean? I mean, the drop kick, anyone who's been following the channel, they know the drop kick is one of my favorites. I'm always sneaking it in there. Yeah, you want to get some drop kicks, stuff like that. It's really good. And honestly, I mean, you can see me having a bit more fun with the figure now that we've gotten rid of those trunk flaps. He is a fun figure. And it's hard for me to not recommend him because he is the new Kinnikuman. But, you know, I feel like I went over the caveats / issues that he had pretty well. But as you can see, despite these guys, there's still a great figure underneath that. So I feel like that mainly covers it for his articulation and, you know, some of the pros and cons of it. So let's get into the accessories. All right, J family, here are the accessories. I want to say as a compliment, he comes with an extraordinary amount of hands, and as a dual compliment, they are very well made. Very well made, so much to the point where if you're in the figure space, I've been seeing people buy the Kinnikuman and then sell his hands separately for custom, you know, for customizer, sorry. That's how great this figure is in terms of, you know, the appearance under the body. But moving on to the actual accessories, you can already see what I was mentioning in the beginning of the review where he has a plethora of mouths and quite a few eyes as well. Let me get a bit closer for you guys. So you can see some of his eyes looking to the right, looking to the left, the, you know, kind of happy eyes and the winky eyes. Then this is like an angry face. This is kind of like his gritting teeth. And this is supposed to be a smile. One of them is like kind of like a frown. Yep. And then the other one is his signature, kind of like Kinniku face, so to speak. The one that you see on the box. Yeah, and then this faceplate is for some of these expressions. Obviously don't work with that faceplate, so that's why they give you an extra faceplate. So I will admit, in terms of accessories, there's not a lot. The only reason I mention lack of accessories being an extreme con is because even though I got this figure for about $50, this figure did originally retail for about 80 plus. So when you're looking at it from that aspect, it really is a bit of a letdown when it comes to what he comes with additionally. I will admit, and I think this is where SH Figuarts is starting to try to get away with murder. In terms of likeness, it is so beautiful and accurate, but I think that's where they get us because the likeness manages to capture the spirit of the characters, but then they lack some of the extra components for what I think the characters are known for. Now, a character like Kinnikuman is just a wrestler, right? So I don't think they could have given him too many accessories. But one accessory that I would have liked to see, that I haven't seen a single Kinnikuman figure do, is give us a faceplate where his kin mark, right, is on fire. Like when he's doing KAJIBA no KUSO力. That would be so cool. And I've never seen, it's kind of like when he's in his powered up state. And I've never seen a single figure do that. We have the Revoltech Kinnikuman who had a blue one, but it's not necessarily, you know, what I was talking about with the burning mark. But anyways, that kind of does it for accessories and articulation. Let's get into some comparisons. So just for the sake of history, here's Kinnikuman compared to his Kinkeshi counterpart. These fellas came out in the 80s, and here we are with 2025. So, okay, so this is the Microman Kinnikuman, which I've already done a video on earlier for this channel. But we're gonna take a look side by side. Definitely, this I would say scales a bit closer to a Revol Mini, but still smaller than that. Bigger than a Dig Action though. Or actually, I should do a comparison between this and Dig Action. But these fellas came out in the mid-2000s. And I have to say, despite their age, the articulation on them is excellent. I mean, ever since I did the review, my Suguru, and I think this is just because of the material that the head is from, the material for Suguru stains pretty easily, so be careful with that. I didn't even try to clean it, but be wary of that for my rare vintage Microman collectors. Here's him with Revoltech Mini Suguru, right? Which all these Kinnikumen, all these Sugurus, I promise they're gonna get their own videos, guys. I promise. Plenty of Kinnikuman here. I have to say, even though this one is bigger and newer and all that, this fella, you can actually usually find him for a pretty decent price, anywhere between $30 and $50. And I don't know what it is, man. I think it's just the Revoltech mold. I really love his style. He looks so cool. I mean, he looks cool too, but he's a mix of like muscular and cute. This one gives me like, I'm not saying I don't like it, but it gives me more like strong and loving energy. Versus this one gives me like, damn, Kinnikuman's badass. You know what I mean? It looks super great, and this guy needs to get his own review. In terms of articulation, they're totally different, but he still actually has a pretty good range of motion. I mean, he's got that Revoltech body, you know what I mean? So you're gonna be able to get any type of rider kick, drop kick, buster, whatever you want. This guy is excellent. Definitely need to do one, but I do more of a proper comparison. Sorry guys, I'm just gushing about Kinnikuman. Both of these fellas though suffer from the same issue because they have the same gimmick where you can take the faceplate off. So in my opinion, that's just a cheap way of not making extra heads, and it's lazy, and I kind of hate it, especially for this guy, but we'll get into that in his review. But pretty cool comparison. You can see the differences here. Honestly, he is the biggest Kinnikuman, I'll say that, unless you're like talking Ramondo. Now, this is the original release of Suguru, original color edition, and now we can get a more direct comparison to all the things that I was referencing earlier in the review, in which you can see the differences in the physique, right? I mean, this guy, especially for an SH Figuarts, I mean, look at his titties, man. He's buff too. They're both muscular, don't get me wrong, but it's just the way they're sculpted. you can see some key differences. You can also see a lot of differences in the paint. Look at the flesh tones. This one is significantly lighter than this one. Overall, don't get me wrong, he still has some heavy shading on certain areas, but this one has the heavy shading plus just a darker palette, darker foundation. Close comparison. Honestly, now that we're comparing them back to back, there's more differences than I expected. I mean, not that I didn't expect, these guys are 10 years apart, so let me rephrase that. More so, take a look at the feet. The old Suguru's feet are a lot bigger, right? Probably lets him stand a lot better. But you'll also notice the old feet don't have any toe articulation. Versus the new one, haha, can get some tippy toe action. Some key differences here, things to note. The old one, you can't take his wristbands off, versus the new one, you can. So for my customizers, that's something to think about. But the old one has the customization mechanic that I told you guys earlier, J-Family, where you can take out some of these body parts and swap them with other wrestlers. The point that I'm making is, both of these figures, I think, are worthy additions to your collections for different reasons. I mean, I have both of them, and I definitely think they're both worthy. They're just different. I think this one has a very, like, if you want to capture the modern Kinnikuman, you go with Perfect Origin. But if you're looking for classic, you know, the original 1982 anime Kinnikuman, the original manga, you need this one. I mean, look at his face. I'm not gonna act like I like this face a lot. I actually like his face more, and you'll see why in a bit. But you can see the difference in the style. And I think that's why I like Kinnikuman. He kind of has like a similar effect to Mickey Mouse in the sense of the design is so simple that you can really see when a different artist or a different style takes on the design because of the subtleties in those differences. And look, here we have no issues with the leg movement. It's just full spinning bird kick, like free range, man. Versus his his newer counterpart, doesn't have that freedom. Yeah, a lot of positives about this guy. A lot of positives. He's gonna get his own review. And then here is Scramble for the Throne Suguru next to Perfect Origins Art Kinnikuman. You can definitely see that POA Kinnikuman is slightly taller and definitely more buff, but despite that, this one actually has a pretty pronounced chest. And obviously the biggest difference between all of them is the fit. This one actually has his signature Kin battle gear. Or should I say battle attire would be more appropriate. But this was the attire that he used in the arc when he fought Kinnikuman Super Phoenix, the Scramble for the Throne arc. And in terms of articulation, this Suguru is a lot closer to that older Kinnikuman, but he came out after him. So there are definitely some improvements that were made from that first release to this one. But in terms of articulation, he is a beast. And in terms of paint, I mean, again, you can see, it's funny though, you can actually see a difference between this one and that one. His flesh palette, I would say, is somewhere of a middle ground between the two of them. But it still looks really great. Unfortunately, and you can see it with some of the blue over here, because of how the thighs sometimes interact with the crotch area, you can get some of the blue rubbing off on it. So it is something to be mindful of. But can you see what I meant when I was talking about the likenesses? Right? This one looks more of like a, I would say he more accurately captures classic Kinnikuman versus that one. But I still think this one, honestly, in terms of the old school SH, I like him more than the other one. But both pretty great. I have pretty big hands, so this is the best I could do. But we got all the generations side by side, right? I guess you can squeeze in Microman right here. But all the Kinnikuman side by side, I just want to say happy Kinnikuman Day. This story, these heroes, they mean a lot to me. I know I've been doing my best with this channel, and I really appreciate everyone who has supported me, supported our legends, and it means a lot. Let's keep spreading the love. Let's keep showing up for our legends. So if you haven't already, don't forget to like for more Kinnikuman and subscribe to celebrate our heroes together. So in conclusion, Perfect Origins Arc Kinnikuman is definitely a great piece for longtime Kinnikuman fans and newcomers alike, especially given the recent price drop that he has had. Originally, I would say if he was still floating around 80 to 90, it would be hard for me to recommend that to a newcomer. However, in the current landscape, I've seen him often float around for $40 to $50, which I think is a fair price. Even though he does lack quite a few accessories, I think the customizable face, accompanied by his very spectacular physique and likeness / design, do make him a worthy addition, even if you're just looking to add a little kind of cool goofball wrestler / fighter to your lineup and you're not familiar with Kinnikuman. I think this plus the Netflix anime could be a good gateway into introducing you to this fandom. And for my longtime Kinnikuman fans, I think he's also still a worthy addition, not only to support hopefully getting another new release like a 2026 Robin Mask, Prang, but also because of, I actually think he scales pretty well. And I mean, you guys have seen it already in a lot of the videos that I've done for the channel. He pairs very well with a lot of the older villains. So even though we have the older generations of Kinnikuman, I do think that if you want to get some key shots and poses and matchups, for example, Kinnikuman versus Akuma Shogun or any of the Akuma Chojin, I think using him actually looks a lot better in photos versus using the older one. It's just opinion though. For a final opinion, I have to say, despite the pros and even the cons that it has, I'm gonna give Perfect Origin Arc Kinnikuman, I wanna say a solid B, right? The only reason I can't give it a B- is because of the price drop. If it was still floating around $80 to $90, like when it first released, I would have definitely given it a B-. But given its current price point in the landscape, I definitely think he's a solid B. And I can't give him a B+ only because of the issues that I've had with the waistband and the trunks. I think if he came with extra heads instead of the customizable faceplates, and he was not dealing with a lot of the issues that he has in his midsection, I would have easily given this figure either an A, or I don't want to say an A+, because he's still lacking accessories, but I would have definitely considered giving him an A versus a B. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Make sure you guys stay tuned for more reviews, more Shonen Legends, more Kinnikuman, and vote for the next poll. If you guys aren't already knowing, Hokuto Shinken Den Shosha, Kenshiro, is next. So make sure you guys tune into that. I appreciate you guys, J family, and I'll be seeing you again soon.